Hi Mike, it's me. Finally getting around to making the video. I'm going to show you how to pour this mold and how to pour a bunch of molds at the same time. But before I do that, I have to talk about safety and probably cleanliness too, because I got these old cheap, I think they call them Crocs. They're all plastic, and as you can see, this is just like resin that spills. This stuff does get everywhere, especially when you're moving fast. So you'll want a cheap pair of shoes that you don't mind damaging. You'll also want gloves, rubber gloves. I get it at Costco. They're about 15 bucks for a box like this. This has lasted me so far over a year. There's enough gloves in there because I reuse them. You know, they're good for about, I don't know, I'd say 6 or 7 different usages. You know, through a period of a week. I can use one pair of gloves for a week of casting. Also, hang on. You want one of these, definitely for sure. This is a lab coat. Mine's all messed up, as you can see. All that stuff, that's what it's RTV, silicon rubber, it's just pieces of resin and stuff like that fly, and keeps it off your clothes. And even if your clothes are bad, this stuff will ruin them right away. So this is lab coat, costs like 30 bucks, but you know, you can get an old beat up shirt or something like that, or a long old shirt or something that works for you, that's inexpensive. I'm missing a button on this, I've got to replace it. This is, let me get my gloves on. Oh, one other item is a respirator. I'm not using it because I got to talk to you while I'm doing this stuff. But what I do have is a ventilation system. I've got a fan in here, and it's blowing air into this room from the outside, and another window's open on the other side. It's letting all the other air out. So this is pretty toxic stuff, especially for you with your bronchitis and stuff. So you're going to want to be in a well-ventilated area, which can be a problem in the winter, because like this stuff, I don't know if you can see it, as it says right there, it's best used between 73 and degrees Fahrenheit, and that's what you want to store it at too. So you don't want to store it lower. If it gets cold, it's really it can cause problems if it gets too cold. I'd say you can get away with like 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's pretty cold, but what it does do is kind of a nice thing, is it allows you to take more time pouring the colder it is, because it doesn't start to gel. Gel time is essential. That's why I'm sending you the Smooth Cast 305. It's a resin that takes 7 minutes before it gels up, and that's good, especially if you're pouring multiple molds, or if you're doing this for the first time, because you got to pour smoothly and evenly. And you know, sometimes with these molds being, especially yours, are going to be about this big. This is a 1/12 scale figure. This is the size of a 1/20 scale figure, which are the molds you'll be receiving. It's a lot faster to pour this than this, so you'll find that out. So the 7 minutes is really a good thing to have. So what I'll be doing is if you're into this, after watching this, I'll be sending you the initial batch of resin, and I'll probably send it through Reynolds, the company that I use, and have them send it directly to you there in Vegas, and you can use it. So there's 2 parts to this resin. Like I said, well-ventilated area. You should be wearing a respirator right now. And there's part A and part B, and they're both equal parts. So if you're going to use 2 ounces of this resin, you got to use 2 ounces of this resin. I have measuring cups for this, and I'm almost out. I've got to order some more. These two have increments you can see right there on the side. I go by ounces, and what you do is I pour it into these cups. This is for part A. I put an A on it so I wouldn't get confused, and this is for part B. And then I take those, and I'll send you a couple of these. These I got a bunch of old ketchup bottles and mustard bottles off of eBay for really cheap. It's like a penny a bottle, and what I do is I cut the tops off of them and put some heat on them and kind of bend out this little lip here so that they pour nice and even. So I'll make a couple of these for you and send them. It's good to have two, because if you're doing a bunch of different casts, well, you don't have 2 pressure pots at this time. But also it's good to have 2, because you never know. Got to clean them out every once in a while. They get a film of resin on them, and it starts to build up, and it impedes the flow of the resin. It makes it harder to pour. So anyway, those are the items that you'll need. One other essential item, and you've seen me using, is paper napkins and rags. Lots of old rags. You'll want to clean this stuff up. If you're working in a garage or something, you don't want to get this resin on there, because this resin, it's like the stuff they use for the garage floor coatings. You've seen them with the speckles and everything. It's an epoxy. It hits that concrete and it isn't going anywhere. So luckily what I've got is this. You've seen the pictures of the studio. The guy had put Pergo in here, and Pergo is a laminate, and it's kind of it sticks to it a little bit, but you can pop it up off of it very easily. Plus, it's kind of got a waxy surface to it, so it makes it easier to keep it clean. So I don't bother putting down cardboard or paper when I pour, but you're definitely going to want to have your compressor run and fill up before you even start this, because you want to make sure you got a full tank, so that when you put everything into the compressor, it's gonna have full pressure right away, and you don't have to worry about setting the pressure on the pot itself. I've got the pot set so that it'll go 50 psi, no more. So don't touch that dial. That's all you need. That'll do you right there. And I think I've got everything covered as far as safety. Just safety, safety, safety. Keep this stuff up high, away from kids, because I know you got kids in there. I heard them during Christmas. So you definitely do not want them anywhere near this stuff. This stuff will kill them. You don't want them breathing in the fumes. So try to do it if you got a garage there. That's the best place to do it, and keep the kids out of the garage. Now, nice thing about the garages is you can kind of close it off, and you can open up the big garage door for ventilation. Now, I don't know what Vegas is like in the winter, but it's pretty cold here, so I'll show you what I got for myself. I got this propane tank with this cheap little $70 Harbor Freight's heater unit there hooked up to it. And this sucker will heat my little studio, which is 12 by 12. It'll heat it up to 78 degrees in about, let's see, in about 2 hours, which isn't bad. Because, I mean, especially when you think about, this is 78 degrees when it's 41 degrees outside and I've got doors open. So, because you can't, this is another item, you cannot run in a closed area. You got to make sure that if you've got this propane heater on, it's open. So it's kind of ideal for what I'm doing, because I have to have the windows open anyway. But propane is expensive. I mean, I fill up 2 tanks. It cost me like 28 bucks. So I mean, and I run through this in about a week and a half. So that can be kind of expensive. So you want heat though, because without it, it's going to take forever for the resin to cure. Now, at 73 degrees, the resin will be fully cured in this form. Not a naked woman, because you're not getting naked women, but it'll be in this, as you can see, it's white. This is an assembled, a piece I'm working on that I assembled. And it'll be white, and it'll be fully cured at 73 degrees in about 45 minutes. You can take it out of the mold. That's why it's kind of nice to be able to pour 5 molds at one time, because your little compression tank will hold 5 of the molds I'm sending you. So you want to fill that tank up with all 5, but initially start out with 1 mold at a time until you get the hang of it, because otherwise you'll be wasting a lot of resin. It might gel up before you actually get everything poured. So, and basically 1 mold is about a half an ounce. And I don't have any measuring cups, big measuring cups like that I can give you. But I've got some small 1 ounce measuring cups I'm going to send with you. And I'll mark 1A and 1B. And you can use those to practice with. That way you can get a half ounce in there and a half ounce in the other one. And you can pour 1 ounce. Now you're still going to have a little bit left over with the 1/20th scale molds, because they don't really take a full ounce of resin. They're just a little under an ounce of resin. So that's why you're going to have to learn to pour at least 5 molds at a time, because it's really a bitch, you know, that small amount. You want to at least pour in, you want to at least do 5 molds at a time. Let's put it that way. But practice like I said on the one. Let me get this thing out of the way. It's off right now because I've already heated this place up, so I don't really need it to be on. But it's still a little hot too. I almost burned myself. Now, another thing that you really critical on these resins is you really, it says shake well. What they mean is that you need to shake the hell out of this stuff. If you don't shake it well enough, you're gonna your pieces are gonna come out and they're gonna be all weepy and wet, and they're not gonna cure all of it. They're gonna start like sweating a bunch of stuff. So I've shaped this thing for a really long time. And I'm gonna shake it in front of you so you see how long you want to do it. And the problem with shaking it this long is that what it does, a lot of freaking air bubbles in it. So you shake it, you shake it, you shake it. You have to let it sit for about a half an hour afterwards, so that all the air bubbles are gone. Especially this part A, or I mean, this part A, this part B. Part B is kind of more viscous than part A. The stuff in the yellow container, and this again, this Smooth Cast 305. So it hangs on to the bubbles a lot longer. Now, I've got a vacuum chamber, and if I'm in a real hurry, what I do is I vacuum these bubbles out. But you have to be very careful too, because if you've got a relatively full container of resin, you're going to have to adjust it and make sure it doesn't overflow, because the bubbles will expand over twice the volume. So they'll just be all over the place. You'll have resin everywhere if you're not careful. But you don't need the vacuum, really. Since you're using pressure, all the air bubbles that are left inside this stuff get crushed. So that's about how long you want to do part B. And part A is the same length. And I'm doing these two right now because I'm going to shut the camera down. I'm going to go away for about a half hour. By then, these things should be settled down. And You don't have to worry about it. That's weird. Some weird numbers came up on this that I've never seen before. So anyway, you get these suckers all shooken up really good. And just let them set. Again, shake the hell out of this stuff. Then let it sit for about a half hour. The bubbles will settle down. The reason you want the bubbles to settle down is, like I said, the pressure tank will crush the bubbles, so you don't really have to worry about them. But what you do have to worry about is that when you're pouring foamy liquids into a measuring cup, you may think you have one level, but as soon as all the bubbles pop, it's actually more fluid. And because part B is more viscous than part A, you're going to end up with less of B of A than you need. And you've got to be really, really close on these, especially when you're working with small quantities like a ½ ounce and a ½ ounce. They have to be right on a ½ ounce. Yeah, some of the pitfalls too is if you don't have it exactly right, you'll come out with pieces that are all limp and wimpy, and they never quite cure, and they start sweating too. So two things cause this to sweat: not shaking up the resin properly, and not getting the right proportions. There's also one other thing that will make your piece sweat, and it has to do with gel times. Remember I said that this 305, Smooth Cast 305, the gel time is 7 minutes. So you got 7 minutes from the point that you mix these two parts together into your mixing cup. Once you get those two parts together, you've got 7 minutes to work them. And that means you've got to, I spend 11 seconds mixing them completely. You want to make sure they're mixed up really good. As much as you can get them mixed, you want to mix them. So you mix them really, really good for at least 11 seconds. Then you start pouring. Now, if you have a timer, that would be handy, because 7 minutes goes by a lot quicker than you think when you're pouring 7 molds, especially when you're working with molds that have openings in them like this. That's a small opening. It's hard to pour into because this is a semi-viscous material. So what happens is it kind of clogs up. I mean, I do my best to vent these well, but when you're working with small pieces, it's really hard to pour resin into them. That's why most manufacturers use injection molding methods for smaller pieces. But that's a very expensive process. I mean, you need a lot of expensive machinery. Low end, $30,000. So we don't have that. And plus the materials that you use for injection molding, they're not really well suited for the types of hobbyists who buy my figures, because they don't withstand a lot of heat. And a lot of these people put them in live steam engines and stuff. So the gel time's really critical. 7 minutes you got. If you got a timer, use it and have it beep at 7 minutes, because as soon as that beeps at 7 minutes, this thing your molds with the resin in them, they have to be in your pressure tank, and they have to be under pressure, because after that, if you go past that magic mark of 7 minutes, bam, you know, you're going to have a really weeping piece of casting coming out. It's not. It may even like destroy the mold. It might be so bad. Another thing you got to remember is your environment that you're working in. On colder days like 65 and stuff, it's going to be, you could fudge a little. It might be a few seconds over, 7 minutes. A few seconds, not minutes over, a few seconds. So you can fudge just a little on a really cold day. You're working at a temperature of 65 degrees, you've got the 7 full minutes. Now, if it gets hot, if it gets over 70 in here, 73, If it gets over 73, you don't have 7 minutes anymore. You've got maybe 5. If it gets over 73 degrees Fahrenheit, you only have 5 minutes to pour that resin. After 73 degrees Fahrenheit, it exponentially starts to become a shorter pour time. So you're getting up in 80 and 90 degrees, you've got maybe 2-3 minutes to work to get everything poured. Now 5 molds, you can pour those in 3 minutes, even the small ones. You'll be working your tail off to do it, but you can do it in 5 minutes. So I would say, or 3 minutes, you can do it in 3 minutes. I would say practice on the one first, because each mold also has its eccentricities. I mean, each mold tends to have areas that get little pockets of air, a lot of air, so much so that they can't be compressed because they're trapped in there. They could be trapped in what are called occlusions. Like, let's say this was a full piece. This area here would be what you consider an occlusion in the mold, right? So the air would come up into this and get trapped, and the pressure couldn't get inside and push it hard enough to crush it. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but this has a little bit of an air bubble. That's why I'm assembling this piece and going to paint it, because I always keep the rejects for myself. See that little air bubble right there? That can happen on yours too. So when you're, and you may not see it when I start pouring it, when you're doing your mold, you always want to make sure that all the detail is on the bottom of the mold, here. And the blank areas like the back of the figure, like this area here, where there's not much detail, it's pretty flat, you want to have that side up. Also, some molds you'll have to tilt this way towards an arm or that way towards an arm. It's something you're going to have to experiment with and get a feel for each of the molds too. So each of the molds has its own characteristics and its own way to pour it, and it's just something that I had to learn by pouring, and I poured a few mistakes. What I did with my mistakes when I initially started doing it, I made a lot of mistakes, I would put them on eBay for like half the price, and people would buy them because, the full-priced item was like, expensive for some people. And some people don't want the whole figure anyway. Some people would buy them just to cut them up. So don't throw your failed attempts away, especially if the head is good or the boots are good. Now, the areas that you're going to have problems with on a figure, let me get one to show you. This one kind of pours good. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good example. This is my hobo leaf figure. And you can see, I don't know if you can see him, but he's carrying a little chicken there. Now see, right, let me get a stick so I can not block it with my... See right there where his elbows are? You got to remember, when you're pouring him, he's like this. Most of the molds you get, the figure is upside down in there. So air is going to get trapped right in here, and right in here, and if you're not careful, in these ears and stuff, and in the back of his coat. So you're going to make sure that when you're pouring it, you're thinking of the figure laying in there like this. So you're going to pour it, I don't know if you remember or if they taught you when you were a carpenter, but when I always had to put, like, when I first started out, they used to have me put down the moisture barrier for around the doors and the windows and stuff like that. And I always think like rain. Well, think in reverse of rain. Rain goes down, air goes up. So you want to tilt this in a way so that the places that are going to trap air will let the air up. So if you were looking at the mold from the side and there was a mold around this, you would be tilting this also this way. So as you pour, you'd be tilting it down like this to get all the detail in the face, and then rotating it around like this to get all the air bubbles out of these areas here. So you see what I mean? I'm not sure if you do, but you will see what I mean as soon as you start pouring, because things will start coming together as you pour, and you'll notice. You might even catch on quicker than I did. I had to go and make a lot of mistakes. In fact, I still, every once in a while, like this is a brand new mold here. So I had to learn how to pour this mold. I made a lot of, I made about 3 mistakes. So one of them I'm keeping. The 2 other, I'll probably just, well, the 2 other pieces, what I actually did is use them to make a mold, help me make a mold for the hair, which actually needed a head to back it up. That's a hard process and a whole different lesson to teach you sometime if we get together. Okay, I just want to go over it. Safety. You'll want a respirator, because this stuff is not good for your lungs. You'll want good ventilation. You'll want a place that you can get dirty. It's okay, but you'll want to make sure that you protect surfaces like concrete and walls and stuff like that. Visqueen works well for walls. I put Visqueen up before, but you know, this is just a shed basically. It's a 12 by 12 shed this guy had, and it's sitting here, and it's pretty well decked out. He's got electricity in it, and it's got a floor and everything. But eventually, if I ever become a rich man, I'd like to tear it down and build a decent-sized studio. So I don't really give a shit what happens to the floor and the windows here. But you're a renter, and you're probably renting with somebody else, and they have a deposit. So be conscious of putting Visqueen up. Yeah, even plastic bags or garbage bags, if you don't want to buy a roll of Visqueen, on the walls and on the floors, that you don't get this stuff on it, because this stuff won't come up. It's pretty heavy duty. You're going to end up a lot of times with pieces that are just left over, and you don't are with resin that's just left over, because for some reason you can figure out how much something needs, but you're always just a little bit over. So what I do is I have this little I made a mold of a rock, and I pour the leftovers into this. And whatever's left over in my cup, my measuring cup, at the end, I just turn that measuring cup upside down in here and let it drain into here. So eventually that builds up into another little rock, or like for this one, I just like pull it out and sell it as a rock piece. Now, I don't have a mold like that to send to you just yet. So I'll try to get you to get together. I'm working on this rock mold. See, the way I make the molds is everything right now I do to conserve. So whenever I have RTV left over, I pour it into this. This is not really the best way to make a mold. This is kind of like catch or catch can, but it's not really, it's waste material anyway. In other words, this RTV that's going in here, it didn't have any place to go. I ran out of space. I miscalculated. I do my best to use math and beans and whatever to make sure that I get the volumes right. But somehow it doesn't really matter. You always end up with a little bit more than you expected. Keep your rags and everything on hand. That's another thing we got to cover. Always keep a rag around to wipe stuff off, because the thing that you don't want is to get a lot of resin. When you get the tank, you'll see that it is pretty much coated. This is, you don't want your house looking like this. And this is easy. This is me being careful. But this is, granted, this is like 6 years of use. So. And oh, but this is the top of one of the tanks you're going to be getting, so that you can pour your own. Now I can help you out on the tanks. Can't help you out on the compressor. I'm going to give you a sample quantity of this resin, so that you'll know which one it is. And I'll write the name of the supplier on it, or the web address of the supplier on it, so that you can order it and stuff. And I don't know. It's I think you can do it. You always were good at this kind of stuff when you were a kid, so now that you're older, you're probably even better at it. Does take getting used to, though. Probably you'll get used to it quicker than I did. It took me a long time. I'm talking right now because I haven't talked to you in a while, but also that's got to sit there for a half hour because of the air bubble thing. Remember the air bubbles? You don't want to pour this with the air bubbles because you can't get a good measurement. It's not so much about the air being in there, it's about the measurement. Respirator I'm not wearing, but you need one, and you need very good ventilation. The garage is ideal for ventilation. If you got a fan in the garage, like a heater that blows air from the outside, that'd be perfect. Heat can't go below 65. Below 65, you're going to end up with some pretty terrible castings that take for freaking ever. So don't go below. Another thing is, it'll take at 65 degrees. It'll take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half for the casting to fully cure. So don't let the temperature get at 65. You may not be in a situation where you can control that. So don't cast during those periods. Pick your days to cast. I normally try to build up a supply in the winter when it's cold out here, so that I don't have to cast in the winter, except for the bigger pieces that I don't sell much of. Then that's when I'll throw the heat on here. But I also paint out here, so yeah, that's another thing. Is I like to paint in the winter because I've got the heat going and I'm not casting a lot. And because I can't paint in here and cast at the same time, even with good ventilation, it's just after a while you get sick of smelling this stuff. This stuff doesn't smell as bad as some of the stuff that's out there. You might want to experiment with cheaper resins. I've already done that, gone that route, and let me just tell you that as far as smell, toxicity, durability, and pot life go, this is the best stuff out there. It's the more expensive stuff, though, too, which is misfortunate. I think if we ever did volume or anything, you could get a break on it. But, geez, don't count on that right now. So I'm going to tune out right now and let the air bubbles finish popping in there, and then I'll come back and you can watch me actually pour this mold. And you can also kind of see how I pour these several molds here, which I'm going to also pour at the same time. Not at the same time. I'm going to pour this one separately. See, I've got actually 4 compression tanks. You can only see. I've spoken so long. Get a compressor without leaks too. This has got a big tank, but it's got leaks, and I can't get them all. Anyway. I've got 4 pots, but I only use 3, and so you'll be getting the 4th one, and it's in pretty good shape. Now it's not going to be the 4th one I have that you can't see is a deeper one and a narrower one. I'm not going to send that because I do bigger molds from time to time. And who knows, if this does take off for you, you might want to start buying your own equipment, and hopefully I'm looking at maybe a partnership with you taking over the production end, if that kind of thing suits you. But you have to be the judge, and you should at least get an idea after this video. You should be able to tell whether it's something you think you want to do or not. As promised, I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing off. Get back to it. Be back in about a half hour.